Greetings and fellow riders! Warm welcome to the Mongol Derby live Q&A. Yes, and my name is Katrine and I am a horse trainer from Norway that completed the world's longest and toughest horse race a few years back. And after that, my life has never been the same. Yes, and yesterday I invited you on email and posts everywhere to ask questions about the Mongol Derby, if you had any. And I have received 12 questions that I'm going to answer in this Facebook Live. If you have a question, pop it in the comments below and I will see if I have time to answer yours too. Yes, so glad you're here and let's get started. But I will start with a question from Nancy, and she has questions about how did you get to choose the horses, or did you get to choose the horses? Yes, so the Mongol Derby is a multiple horse race. So the riders, they ride 1,000 kilometers, but the horses, they only go from 30 to 40 kilometers. So I think to arrange the Mongol Derby, they use several hundred horses, yes, and they are all wet checked and physically fit to do the race pre the race. And there's also very, very strict wet checks along the race. So you ride from station to station, just like the Genghis Khan postal system. He had the world's largest and most effective post system at the time, which was based on the riders riding from one station to the next, and every 30 to 40 kilometers they would change the horse. So the Mongol Derby is made in the exact same manner, yes. And on each station there's of course a wet check, so you can't leave that station before your horse has gone through a very, very strict veterinarian check, where the heart rate per minute needs to be below, I think it's 56 beats per minute. And they also check the horse for hydration, if it's hydrated, and you get remarks if your horse is dehydrated. They check the skin to see that, and they also check for wounds and stuff like that. Yeah, so you choose then horses on each station. Yeah, and you can also, ask for a horse. Yes. So I know at the first stations I was choosing horses myself, and I had all kinds of ideas of how to judge a good horse, like their eyes, and especially in Iceland they say that if the horse has the eyelashes pointing downwards, it's a lazy horse, and if the eyelashes are kind of upwards or straight out, it's a fast horse. And you have all this stuff about whirls and red mares and whatnot, and I found actually the herder's judgment of the horses to be better than mine. Yeah. So after choosing horse a couple of times and being very surprised each time, I would ask the herders for a horse. And I actually also learned a little bit Mongolian. So I knew that Numhang means, safe horse. And I also knew that Seinmør means fast horse and good horse. So I could kind of, say that, like, if I had ridden 3 fast horses and was very, very tired, I would want the Numhang, right? A safe one. And if I was kind of falling behind and felt I hadn't ridden long enough that day, I would need the same Mur to get there faster. And they would do their best to, fetch a horse for me that fitted the description. But, there weren't always a lot of horses to choose from at the station. And the horses were, they had their different personalities, and the herders who then provide horses for the race and also run the station, so we live and sleep in Mongolian gears along the way, they knew the horses very well. So I would maybe ask for a Saint Mer, and they would go like, sorry, no Saint Mers left for you, madam, but we have this one. And then I would kind of ask, yeah, how does he ride? And they would say like this. That means he could do some bucks. Or they would say like this. That would mean like, okay, it's a bolter. Or they would do like this, which means, okay, the horse is hard in the bit. Or they would do fourth thing was like choo choo, do like this, which meant it was a slow horse. And if you got a slow horse, and especially if you were alone, it was very important to do a follow-up question. So then I would do like, can I ride it alone? And if they said no, I would say, okay, find another horse. Yeah, because in the beginning of the race, I was stuck with a choo-choo horse who did not ride alone. So when the other riders left me, he just stood there and I was kind of stuck until the next day where I could then hang on to some other riders. So yeah, you can either choose your horse or you can get a horse. Yeah. And I ended up getting horses. And I found that very beneficial as I could then get some instructions from the herder who knew the horse on what kind of horse it was. Yes. And I think Peter, I'm not sure if he had actually a question, but he said something like, you know, I've been dreaming of the Derby for a long time, and now I feel like I'm kind of getting too old to participate. And I just have to say to you, Peter, you are not too old at all. Last year, a 70-year-old man, he didn't only complete the Derby, but he won the whole freaking Derby. 70 years old. And in other occasions, there have been young people winning. But I think if you're under 18, you need approval from your parents to participate, which won't be an issue for you, right? So I say, Peter, do it. You know, age is no limit. If you're 70, doesn't matter. You can still do the race. Are anyone here also listening to this and thinking, dang, I wish I did this when I was 40, but now I'm 50, 60, and I can't because I'm too old? That is BS. So drop a comment below and just say, I'm not too old. And Kimberly, she has a question here. There seem to be a lot of people that are kind of dumped off on a regular basis. And I think she's asking like how to avoid falling off. And before the race, there are a couple of days with training out on the steppe where we get to familiarize with the horses and the equipment, and we also get to navigate to a certain point. I learned so much from these 2 days, and I think both by them watching what happened with the other riders and how the horses were reacting, I learned a whole lot, like what not to do. And also the herders were there, and although they didn't speak English, you could kind of hear their grunts when you did something stupid. Yeah. So riding circles wasn't something the herders was very keen on us doing, at least me, because the first horse I tested there at the test ride, very nice horse. And thank God it was a nice horse because the saddles are kind of stock saddles, very narrow seat. And I'm used to riding Icelandic horses who are gated, so I have a very wide seat. So I had a hard time getting my butt into that saddle. I was like, and I felt so kind of stuck in it. So that was very unfamiliar for me, and also the reins and you know, the bridle, how to handle all these things here. These are the reins, and this is kind of the whip and also the lead rope. Yeah, lots of stuff to familiarize with. And I also wanted to kind of check how the horse was riding, like do a little circle and maybe try a little bend to stop there, and you know, see how it was in the reins and such. And the herder was like, he was like, like, you know, don't do that, you know, just go. And I'm like, okay, I will try to, you know, just go. And then it went a whole lot better than when I was, you know, fiddling with the reins and trying to, you know, check how the horse was riding. Yeah, and another thing that also happened in this test ride was after we had navigated to this certain point we needed to find, on the way back, I obviously had a much better horse than I knew, because I rode him like a trot and a bit of canter to the point, and then on the way back I was walking a bit together with another rider, and we were chatting, and in the middle of a sentence it was like my horse was kind of, he was like stung by a bee or something. I don't know, it felt like he just set off in rocket speed and there was no way of stopping it. And he of course ran straight back to the station and the others. I had to duck under the line there, and I was like, dear Lord, this horse was fast. And the herder who knew the horse, he then wanted me to, you know, dismount, and was very proud of his horse who had come in this rocket speed and then to a full stop. You know, the horse had done everything the horse needed to do. But I, as a European rider, I was like, you know, we can't end the ride like this. So I took the horse a bit back, 50 meters back away from the station, and then I rode to the station, you know, on loose reins, in walk, to, you know, kind of have to, you know, deliver a calm horse that wasn't kind of bolting and then suddenly stopping. And also, again, the herder was like, why you do that? You know, the horse did perfectly well. He ran as fast as he could back, and then he stopped as best as he could. You know, you should be very, very happy with this horse. So, yeah, from the teachings there, I kind of learned that I had to let go and trust the horse, and not mess around with them, if you know what I mean, and not try to control them too much. Which makes sense, because the horses in Mongolia, they, of course, they know the terrain and they know how to get from one place to the next one as safely as possible. Yeah, I hope this answers your question. So do what the herders say and try to interpret their grunts. Yes, and you will avoid falling off. At least, I'm not sure you can totally avoid it, but you're less likely to fall. Okay. I think Yo has a question, like, is it possible to do the Derby like more in a slow pace? Yes, definitely. Um, to, you know, complete the race, you need to do then 1,000 kilometers in 10 days. And you have a whole day of riding, so you can ride from morning till evening. So if you are comfortable with riding about 100 kilometers per day in 10 days, I'm not sure what the speed will be, but you don't have to go in rocket speed. I would say, you know, going with the horse, the pace the horse likes to go, and you can ask for numhangs, and you will get there safely and soundly in time. And that was my aim with the whole derby, was to complete the derby in one piece and without getting any veterinarian remarks, and without, you know, fetching rides with trailers or motorbikes or anything like that, but just ride the whole thing. But I also know now, I think this has maybe been changed the last few years, that it is possible to get kind of a lift from one station to the next. You will get a time penalty, but it is actually possible to now do the Mongol Derby with a little bit of riding in a car. Yeah. Okay, Anne-Louise has a question, and she dreams of participating. How awesome! Hope you are here, Anne-Louise. Drop a comment below if you are. And I'd say, yeah, a dream with a deadline and a plan becomes a reality. And that's the best thing about the Mongol Derby, is that it has a deadline. So like it starts at a certain date. You can't really change it. And if you then make a plan on what you're going to do until that certain date, that dream is going to come true. Best way to make this dream happen is to, sign up for it. Do we need to apply? Yes, we need to apply for doing the Mongol Derby, and I think you're filling out the form, and you also have an interview. At least what I have seen during the years, and also when the year I was riding, is that many beginners make it to the finish line, and also many professional riders get into trouble with the Derby, which might seem a bit counterintuitive. But the year I rode, it was at least 2 or 3 who had not been riding very, very much. But they were fit, they were adventurous, they had been riding enough to, know how to stay on a horse, and they had very good balance. And they also had good survival skills and were good at navigating. So, and these guys and girls, it was actually a bit easier for them to ride these horses than it was for me, who was a horse trainer and, wanted to do stuff and um, maybe I had more a tendency to control the horses than they had. So the Mongolian horses, they felt at home with these, happy amateurs than with a, concerned rider, professional rider. So if you are a very, very good dressage rider, then maybe there's some things you need to kind of work on yourself so that you're not doing stuff you don't know you're doing, that you're kind of doing a bit automatically, because the horse will notice you're doing this. And also, I think if you're a professional jockey, many professional jockeys actually joined the Derby. They also got into a little bit of trouble because they are, of course, used to standing in the stirrups and leaning forwards. And you can do that with a big horse, but with a small horse with a short neck, you know, you will be somersaulting over that horse's neck before you know it. But they also learn to, ride more straight up. I remember from the interview, like I was telling about all my riding experience, and I was like educated horse trainer, been riding many, many years, blah, blah, blah. And they were like yawning on the other side and like, yeah, and so. And then I said, yeah, and I lived in Iceland and I've eaten rotten shark because they do that on Iceland. And they were like, yeah, you're in. So they are maybe not looking for the perfect horse trainer or rider to participate, but to have the spirit of adventure and to be able to adapt. Yeah. So if you got those checked out, you are going to fly into the race. Yes. And she also asks, what did you do for your own endurance? Yeah, I went to the gym 3 times a week, and I found, for my sake, that going to the gym with a group of people and a coach and very, very loud music, that did wonders for my motivation and for, actually getting some training done. So these 3 times a week, I had Zumba first, dancing, and then I had spinning, and then I had strength. Yes. So it was quite a program. Unfortunately, the gym closed in June or something because then the trainers went on summer holiday. So I was then left with doing my own training program, which I don't think was as effective. But then I of course walked a lot, rode a whole lot, and I rode without the saddle. That I think really saved me and gave me a awesome balance before the Derby. So I basically threw away the saddle and rode bareback for half a year. And I also ran, and I had my own, bicycle in the living room. So I was bicycling while watching TV and such. The smartest thing I did before the Derby was actually to go out on a horse riding trip on my own with my horses, testing the gear outside, navigating on my own, and I could then make adjustments to the gear and the equipment I could bring with me, because you can only bring 5 kilos of equipment, which is then a sleeping bag and maybe a mattress and your navigation stuff and maybe a set of extra clothes if you can weigh it in, some first aid kits, batteries for your GoPro, your Garmin, and stuff like that. So that was crucial, I think, to go out on this ride, learn to navigate and test the gear. Yeah, Jasmina has a question. What do the Mongols feed their horses in winter? Yeah, that is nothing. They don't get any food in the winter. So they live, there are no fences in Mongolia. So the horses live in herds, like with their families. And the families usually also have jack, that's kind of a cow with very much fur. And they also have goats and horses. And they, live nomadically, so they go from place to place. And I'm pretty sure they have their winter grazing areas. So there are probably areas then in Mongolia with longer grass, so that the horses and their other livestock can, find food in the winter. But it can be, it's a rough life, yeah. And especially if you have then a dry, hot summer followed by a long, cold, hard winter, livestock die from hunger in Mongolia. And the cows die first, and the goats die last, and the horses, they survive better than the goats. Yeah. But it's a rough life. There are no barns, there are no fences, there are no electricity to milk the cows with, or milk the mares. Yeah, they drink the horse milk, or these jack cows, and the goats. So it's rough. Yeah. But they have horses. There's a reason why they have horses, because they are tougher than the cows. Yeah. And survive better. Yes, but the horses looked very, very well, and they are also picked for the Derby. So I also know the Derby organizers, if they see a thin horse, although the nomads think the horse is fine to go do the race, it's ultimately them who decide if this horse is fit or not. Yeah. Yes, I also did not see any salt or mineral blocks or anything like that given to the horses. Yes. Yeah, but it's so different there, that things we take for granted are not something you take for granted in Mongolia. There are very, very few hospitals. If you're a woman in Mongolia and you give birth, there's a risk you die from giving birth, because there aren't any help nearby if something should go wrong. And the kids are working in the mines in the day, and in the night, and they go to school in the day, and it's a hard life. Yeah, but they are so generous, and so incredibly fit and athletic. So they ride from they are tiny little bareback, with their horses, and they always welcome guests into their gear, although they might not have lots of food or lots of stuff like we do. They always have food and shelter for guests, because that's also a very common way of traveling in Mongolia. Like you ride off and you sleep in a gear with the herders, and you ride to the next. That's how you can kind of travel. So for us, taking the bus is like for them going on horseback and spending the night in the next, gear. Yeah. Jan asks, do they drink mare's milk? And did you? Yes, they drink mare's milk. And because horses are so easy to feed and are strong survivors, they rely more on the horse milk than on the cow milk. Yes. So they use mare's milk for a lot of stuff, and most of the mares are milked. And what I saw when they are milking the mares, they tie the foals. Yeah. So they kind of tie up the foals in kind of a line on the ground, uh, probably some few hours before they're then going to milk the mare. So the horses in Mongolia, they are very difficult to catch, but they tie very well because they have been tied from they were foals. And that's how they then milk the mares manually, and they use the mare's milk for ayrag, which is fermented mare's milk with a bit of alcohol in it, which is uh, they don't drink ayrag left and right. That's kind of special occasions you get some ayrag, and it tastes very good actually. I loved it. Yeah, and they also make these kind of cookies with the milk. It's kind of a dried milk cookies. I'm not sure how they do it, if they pressure the milk, but it's the cookies look beautiful, but they are quite, you need to chew them very well, and they contain a lot of minerals and calcium, but it's like eating very, very hard dried milk. Yeah, shaped as a cookie. So I was like, oh, cookies! And I tried one, and I was like, I spent probably an hour eating it. Yeah. But then I got minerals. And we also drank a whole lot of milk tea. Yes, it's milk with probably boiled water and salt and some herbs. And Fiona has a question. She says, the horses look wild while mounted, but later ride well. Are they kind of easy to point and go? Yes, I think you got it, Fiona. Better to point them somewhere and kind of go and let the horse go than to do like I did in the beginning, ride circles and test the reins and do a whole bunch of annoying stuff with the horse. Yes, you are going to rock the Derby. And she also asks, how do you remount after a break or when camping out? Yeah, another excellent question. I didn't camp out more than I think 2 nights. I was camping out, and it was quite a hassle actually, because these horses, they tie very well, and they also lead properly, and they can be ridden, but they are pretty, difficult to catch. And we rode off with these bridles, and you can take the bridle here kind of down and take the bit out, and you can then use the bit as a back piece for a halter. So this was something you need to do with a bit of cleverness and care if you were camping out, or if you dismounted and wanted to stay for a while, because the horses could then run off once you took the bridle over their ears. So you need to kind of slip it kind of slightly down, get the bit behind here, slip it back on, and then voila, you have a halter. And you can use the lead to graze your horse and give the horse water, and then you tie the horse up at the tying poles there, and go to sleep. And the next day you need to wake up early and graze your horse and give your horse water and saddle and mount the best you can. But my best tips is to, stay mounted. No unnecessary dismounting. Yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah, is this something you can do as an older woman? Yes, you can do this as an older woman. Like I said, last year's winner was a 70-year-old man, and I would hope to see a 70-year-old woman, be next year's winner. So do it, and you are going to be in the shape of your life. because you will then have a mission and a deadline, something to train towards. And I would never have gotten in as good shape as I was in before the Derby if it wasn't for the Derby. Okay, Rosanna has a very good question. Because I think I wrote in the post that when I went to Mongolia, my aim was to, you know, train the horses and maybe also give a few tips to the nomads. So, and he asked, what made you think that you knew more and better than them before you went off? And as I said, I'm a horse trainer from Hular University College. I have trained and tamed hundreds of horses. I'm a riding instructor. And I looked at videos from Mongolia and I saw like, that was kind of an example of horrible horsemanship. I was like, oh my God, this looks so horrible. And the bridles and the bits are kind of sticking out of the horse's mouth and they're standing and it kind of didn't look very professional to me. And the horses, they were kind of often very bent upwards. They were not carrying themselves properly, with a bent neck and high back and hind leg engagement. It all looked, pretty Wild West. So I think that's why I thought I wouldn't knew better, because then I could teach the horses, a little bit about feel and softness in the reins and teach them some riding signals and yeah, maybe give the herder some tips on, how to handle them more gently. Yeah, no, now it sounds ridiculous, but that was kind of a little bit my mission there. But especially from the training days, I learned so much about their horse culture and how they survive together with their horses. So considering that these horses live semi-wild outside all year long, you can't make them too tame and dependent on humans, because then the horses are not going to survive out in the wild. Then they are just going to hang out by the gear and not go out and find food, and maybe they will not flee from predators, So the horses need to keep their kind of wildness to survive. And I think that's also why they are difficult to catch. But still, the Mongolians, they know very much what they're doing, and they are excellent horsemen. Like, they have been sitting bucking ponies bareback from they were tiny little. They think it's fun, and it's much harder to sit a bucking pony or a bucking small horse than it is to sit a big horse, because you have nothing in front of you and they are pretty darn quick. So they are incredibly athletic and they love their horses and they treasure their horses more than anything. They are so proud of their horses, and it's just very different. And I had to unlearn a lot of stuff that I learned at the riding schools and during my education. Yes, yeah. So I don't think it was like my ego that kind of got in the way from learning from them. I think it was more all the knowledge and all that I have been taught didn't make sense out on the step at all. Yeah. So I hope this answers your question. Yes. And I think now I try to, I don't have my horses so wild that I need to lasso them to bring them into the barn, And although if they were at that wild, I wouldn't be able to lasso them like the Mongolians do. And if my horses were wild like that, I would probably not be able to sit on them and ride them. So I of course I have not kind of implemented their way of handling and managing the horses, but I do you think it's very, very important that horses, that we give them a sense of meaning with the stuff they are doing? Like, to me, it makes sense to ride circles because it makes the horse softer and it's good for the horse, or they need to carry themselves properly, all this stuff. I was doing all this stuff because I wanted my horses to carry themselves well and to be ridden properly in a way that was healthy for them. But after going to Mongolia, I see that very many things people commonly do with their horses isn't particularly healthy for them, not physically and definitely not mentally. So I try to very much implement kind of a sense of meaning with the stuff I do with the horses. But I teach them riding signals and stuff like that, but I don't do stuff just to do it. Yeah. Like, if the horse knows the groundwork, I want to teach them, and they can respond off my body language, and I can, I have a drive and I have a draw, and they lead properly, follow my energy. I don't do that every day just to do it. Then I move on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And try to also keep the horses self-sufficient and proud. Yeah, so every fall my horses go way up on a pasture that we don't graze all summer, and they can actually stay there until New Year's Eve. And they have to find their own water, and they have to dig snow to find their own food, and they are not depending on anyone. And they are not on a pasture that they just can, stick their noses down and munch lots of grass. They have to really find the food, and they become so healthy and proud. So they become a little bit different horses from having those months, to become a little bit wild again. But I don't lasso them back home to the barn. I go and say hello, put on the halter, and lead them back home. So to me it was a gift to go to Mongolia. It changed my way of riding and thinking about horses in a way that the horses responded very, very well to. Also, one of my mares who I had almost given up on before the Derby, I was like, she's crazy. I have tamed so many horses. She doesn't, respond normally to the training regime I have with lunging and side rinds and blah, 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 and the control part. So she must be something wrong with her. Nothing wrong with what I'm doing. I was a bit arrogant. Yeah. But anyhow, when I came back from Mongolia and I had learned from the herders and to let go and cooperate with the horse through the landscape there, I implemented that with my mare. So I had several months I did kind of groundwork with her that wasn't really groundwork. I just had to do something completely different, all kinds of stuff, and I had to change. So she didn't have self-control because I was always controlling her. And I was always controlling her because if I didn't control her, she would buck me off and do stupid stuff. So before I always got this feedback that if I let go, she does stupid things. But she did stupid things because I was not able to let go. Anyhow, one day she basically stood there and wanted me to ride her, and I rode her on loose reins, and I could take the bridle off and I could ride her without reins. And she totally transformed, and she had been like that all the time. It was me who was the problem with all my, obedient stuff and the circles and the control and making sure she was this and that, and it was, yeah. So and that's what I've been doing ever since, and the horses respond so well to it. It's like they know when we change. Yes. Yeah, thank you for this question. It was very inspiring. There are only 2 questions left, and then I will look in the comments and see if you have any questions who are here this evening. And if you have, drop them below and I will be happy to answer. And I hope this makes sense. Anybody who has felt a bit the same way, like you, the day you kind of realize that, dang, it's nothing wrong with the horse, it was me who created it. Or maybe a combination of a, sensitive, a bit wild horse combined with the need for control kind of doesn't really work out in the long run. Yeah, tension tends to build up in the horse, and yeah, we can easily, spiral towards, yeah, quite dangerous and difficult circumstances, where what's needed is actually to let go and allow the horse to move freely underneath us and do stuff together. Not only I want this and I want that, and although we do it for the best for the horse, they can sometimes become a bit mentally damaged from doing stuff that doesn't really make sense to them, at least if that's what we do a lot. Yes. Okay, Jeanette asks here, how to choose the horse. Yeah, I think I answered that in the beginning of the live. I could not find a good system for choosing a horse. So I relied on the herder's advice and the very little Mongolian I knew. And some equipment tips. Yes, know your gear. I think that's my best tip. Go out, test your gear in on a ride where you camp outside, so that you know where all your stuff is. And I had, a saddle bag behind the saddle with my sleeping bag and stuff like that. And I also had a camelback backpack with water, so you can drink water. And I also had my Garmin attached so that I could, canter, drink water, and navigate at the same time. So you don't have to kind of fetch stuff all the time and open and close zippers. Stuff like that. And also have something that's essential for survival in your backpack. Like, you could fall off and lose the horse and the saddlebag, but the backpack will hopefully stay on you. So you have some stuff there. Yeah, energy bar, and I had kind of this blanket that can keep you warm if you stay out, and bit stuff like that. Yes, and what would I do differently if I was to participate in 2023? Yeah, I would probably train myself better before the start, but wouldn't we all? And I would maybe bring Nescafe. Yes, there was no coffee on the step, and I love coffee. So I heard that if you bring these tiny little bags of Nescafe, you can add it to the milk tea and it will be like a cappuccino. I wish I knew that. And I would probably also bring other riding pants. I had Sun Rider Thermo Winter. Awesome riding pants. Like, they are the best. But the year I rode the Mongol Derby, there was a big heat wave the first day. So it was 40 degrees hot, no wind, and it was the boiling sun. It was really awful. Then those riding pants were very, very warm. So I had kind of heat rashes from my ankles up to my hips from these pants, who were way, way too warm. But then it shifted from 40 degrees and sun to 10 degrees and rain. And then I had luckily brought wool, so I did not become too cold. But I would probably bring kind of light riding breeches and a set of woolen trousers, so that you can mix and match according to the weather, which can be changing. I'm very glad I brought gifts for the nomads. Yes, I did. It was simple stuff. It was like balloons and fake tattoos and stuff for the kids. And I also brought a carton of Marlboro cigarettes for the herders. They love Western cigarettes. And I had stopped smoking. That's also something I did before the Derby. I stopped smoking, but I still brought these cigarettes. If you are going on the Derby, I can send you a picture of all my tack, and that weighed exactly 5 kilos. Yes, what I brought. Okay, Sis asks, how do you save your butt from shaving? Yeah, we got this kind of seat saver. I didn't use the seat saver. I already found the saddles very, very narrow, and with the seat saver, they become even narrower. So I felt very stuck in the saddle to begin with, so I ditched the seat saver. And I actually had no chafing, and I think this, if you are getting these wounds from the riding, I think it's probably either because um, we are sitting crooked on the horse, so sitting straight is very important, and have a relaxed and loose seat. So there were some riders who had horrible wounds after riding these 1,000 kilometers, and that might be like if you are not straight and if you are holding your knees to the horse, like clinging on the horse, you will get these rubs. But if you manage to kind of just flow with it and sit straight, I think that's my best tip for not getting shaving. Yes. And I went to a napropath to get my body adjusted several times before I went. And I also finally learned how to ride straight. I'd always been a bit to one side, aren't we all? But the Derby got me the motivation to, sort this out, because I didn't want to shove. So I got the motivation I needed to finally be straight in the saddle. Yeah. Okay, so best of luck with that, sis. But that's my tip. Others might have other tips. I think maybe also the kind of fabric you have in your riding pants might matter there. And I had, as I say, awesome riding pants. They were just way too warm. Okay, let's see if there are any comments. Okay, many comments here. Yeah, Anne-Louise, I will send you a picture of the tack. It looks like you're going, and I see the picture of you and your horse there. You are going to rock this. You already ride Mongolian style. Oh my God, the herders are going to love you. Okay. Oh, Katarina says she has the same jacket in red. Yes, I bought it in Ulaanbaatar. What do Mongolians consider the best qualities in a horse? Asked Jane. Yes, to me it seemed like um, the herders, the nomads, they live in families, and it seemed like each family member had their favorite horse. So I remember this kid. That was one of the nights I was sleeping out with other nomads, not associated with the Derby, and he jumped on his horse bareback with just a bridle, and it was so beautiful. And he rolled off on these loose reins, and you could really see that this horse enjoyed very much being ridden by this kid. So that was probably the horse he would say was the best horse. And if you asked the lady, she would have another. And I think if you asked the man, he would probably say that the fastest horse is the best horse. Yeah, because they have these horse races that the kids are riding, and they are from 10 kilometers up to 40 kilometers. And it's very huge honor to have the horse who wins these Nadan races. Yeah, so the fastest horse over a long distance is the best horse. So they don't care so much about how the horse looks. They don't care so much about the temperament. They don't care about the color, but it's like, which is the fastest and most durable horse? That's the best horse. But it also seemed like each family member had their favorite. Yeah, great question. And I had many favorite horses along the way. And one horse, he saved my life, definitely. But he also caused the turmoil we were in, because on one of the stations there were like a 2-3 kilometer long and slightly downwards hill. And I got a little gray horse, and most of them have big butts, low withers, no neck at all. And I mounted the horse, pointed in the right direction, and the horse went off, and the saddle started slipping more and more and more and more forwards. And you know, if I then tried to stop the horse by pulling on the reins, I would have pulled the saddle over the horse's ears. So I was basically just trying to hold on to the little mane the horse had. He was a gelding, so he had only kind of toothbrush mane. So I was kind of holding on to the mane, and I was like, you just don't fall and stop when you want to stop. And he just went, and at the bottom of the hill he started going a bit upwards again, and then he stopped, and I dismounted, adjusted the saddle, and I thanked this horse for not, you know, jumping sideways or bucking or being stupid in any way, for, you know, just keeping his pace and just running. So he was a great horse. Yeah, he did what he was supposed to do, and saved us both there. Yeah. So they had very different personalities. It was like the Mongolians, they don't really change their horses. Like, if it's slow, it's slow, and if it's bolting, it's bolting, and if it bucks, it bucks. You know, they just ride with the problems. And they are so athletic and so good horsemen and women that to them, you know, that's not difficult at all. They only think it's fun. So it was that was also something we can learn from them. Like, maybe we shouldn't worry so much if our horse is a bit slow. Then, you know, that can be a gift too. It can be very suitable for the younger children. You know, and if our horse likes to run fast, you know, what a gift. You know, that's a very suitable horse to go a bit longer distances, and you will get there fast. Yeah. And if your horse bucks, then yeah, great opportunity to become a better rider. So they have kind of this different view, and also a great opportunity for entertainment. Yeah, if you get a horse or pick a horse, and they start gathering around to watch you ride, then it's usually a sign that something fun is going to happen. But what you also can do then is to ask how the horse rides. Like then, I remember I got the stallion once. The stallions are easily recognized because they have long mane. They only ride stallions and geldings. The mares are milked. So the geldings have very, very short mane, but the stallions have lots of mane. You're not supposed to cut the stallion's mane, so don't cut their manes, okay? Anyhow, I wasn't really sure about riding a stallion, and I made it clear to the herd. I was like, stallion, I don't know. And then he got his younger son to hop on and show him for me, and turned out the stallion was a very nice stallion. Until, of course, I met then another stallion out on the steppe with his herd of mares, and these two stallions were like, "Rrr." But I kind of persuade my stallion to keep on going. But it's so that's something you can do there, and ask how the horse rides, and they will hop on and show you. Yes. Okay, it's almost been an hour. Thank you so very much for joining. It was an honor to share this with you, and I hope I inspired you to, you know, if not the Mongol Derby, then go on an adventure and experience different horse cultures, because it had such a profound effect on how I train and ride horses today that I would not have been without it. It's truly a gift. And what's also extremely fascinating is that although I didn't speak Mongolian and they didn't speak English, you know, we could still talk about horses. You know, it's kind of this universal language. You know, we all know what this means, and we all know what this means. You know, so it's we could have conversations about the horses, no problem. So they love their horses just as much as we do, but in a different way. Okay, thank you so much for joining, and hope to see you next Wednesday. Okay, bye for now.